All right, sweet. Well, we're recording, so we may as well jump into it, eh?
Yeah.
Mate, welcome to the new studio.
Intro.
First guest.
Thank you, Bill.
Pressure's on,
Yeah.
as I said earlier.
No, I feel really pumped. It's good to, check it out. And, it was cool to see the table and stuff
Yeah.
coming in.
Yeah, well, for people that are
It's
watching on the TV, on the YouTubes, this table that we're standing by, Rick Kerr Designs. Rick Kerr.
It's like the bar in Cheers. You can just kind of like lean on it.
Yeah, I feel like we need beers. It's not past 12 yet, but maybe.
No, it might be past 12 somewhere.
Irish
I
whiskey,
suppose,
maybe. We'll just go see where we go with these coffees. But, cool. So, we have Nick Scaraju. Is that pronounced correctly?
It's Skrayev.
Yeah, that's what I said.
It's something that's always haunted my life. Like, whenever I get phone calls from, like, insurance companies or like starting a new job at work or something, it's always incorrect. And it's motivated me because I have like no pride whatsoever. I don't think there's a coat of arms or anything in the Skrayev family, but I was like, I'm definitely going to get this changed by Depot one day. And then I bumped into like a lot. I was on a work site like a couple of months ago doing some filling work and bumped into my long lost uncle who has the same name, because there's only like 7 of us in Australia that have that name. Yeah. And I just happened to be on that one work site working on that same level, bumping in, because he had that name stick it on the top of his hard hat. I'm like, had a double take. I'm like, is that your last name? He's like, yeah. I'm like, I'm related to you.
Wow, that's weird. Where's the name from?
It's Ukrainian.
Ukrainian, yeah, right. Do you reckon this is a little bit close to the... let's push this out an inch.
Yeah.
This new setup in the new studio, we just had the table. I was getting a bit crammed in by the wall. Ukrainian, eh? So there's 7 of yous. Interesting.
But yeah, I don't know. There's definitely no pride. I certainly can't speak Russian. I can barely speak English. So.
Yeah. No, that's good. I actually had a bloke come up to me at Mornington Padua one day, which is the school I went to, and he walked up and he's like, "Hey, you're Bill Kerr?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm your cousin." I said, "No, you're not." "No, you're not, mate. I know my cousin." His name was Mum's maiden name's Paganoni, and all my cousins are Paganonis, and he was Tom Paganoni, and we were like distantly related. He's actually a ripper bloke.
Yeah,
we were kind of like buddies. I wouldn't call him a cousin though.
That's a cool way to break the ice. I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, I like your shoes. I think we're related.
Yeah. I like your shoes. You're my dad. Yeah, sweet. So before the show, I was obviously we were talking last night, and I was trying to figure out how to introduce you. What would you refer to yourself as? So, but I kind of was thinking that you're really an endurance racer above all else, right? Would that be right?
Correct. Yeah. So if I was to turn around and define my life, it would be around that space. Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you say it? Endurance bike rider.
Yeah. Ultra distance athlete. Yeah.
Ultra distance athlete. Is that how you would say it? Okay.
So it's kind of a sport that has existed for like 100 years.
Yeah.
But it's only really, in its current iteration, existed for 10 years. And it's only really boomed in like the last 3 or 4 years.
Right.
So in Australia, like before the modern car was a thing, there were guys on very rudimentary bikes that had no gears and solid tyres and stuff, and would ride and race each other from like town to town. And often these towns would be like 200 kilometres apart. We've got a really rich, in Australia in particular, we've got a really rich history of endurance cycling. We've had, a lot of record attempts. There's a statue in Castlemaine of Sir Hubert Opperman from riding across Australia within a certain time. It all come about with me in 2017. So I was really good friends with the organiser of the Indian Pacific Wheel Race, which was So it's a single stage. So like if you look at the Tour de France, it's broken down into days and stages and stuff.
Yeah.
The Indian Pacific Wheel Race is one stage.
Indian Pacific what?
Oh, the Indian Pacific Wheel Race. So it starts at
Pacific. I can't.
Oh, sorry. Wheel race.
Wheel race.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I just, the way you pronounce it, it sounded like you were saying wool race or wool race. And I was like, oh, yeah.
It's so it starts at the Indian Ocean
Yep.
on Western Australia and
Yep.
finishes at the Pacific Ocean. And it goes, so it's Perth, across the Nullarbor Plain to Adelaide, the Great Ocean Road to Victoria, through the mountains to Canberra and then to Sydney.
Oh,
So yeah, I can't even remember how long it was now. I think it's 4,500 kilometres or maybe slightly longer, 4,700.
Yep.
But it was kind of, for Australia, because there'd been events. Well, there's been events going on in Australia for in the world for the past 10 years. It was kind of like a really new thing to bring over, and it was like something that Australia had never really seen before. Mm-hmm. And I was really, really fortunate to be part of that, and it was gaining this crazy momentum.
so this is how you started, you said, though, right? It's all started
Yeah,
for me.
so
it started for you with this race?
I was mates with the guy that organised it.
Right.
So he had this.
He's like, mate, we need to fill a few spots. What are you doing Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday?
Yeah. Well, we had. So Jesse Carlson, who is currently in Uluru. So he just rode from Townsville to Uluru.
Yep.
Which is a pretty far distance.
Yeah, for sure.
A few thousand kilometres over pretty remote.
Hectic part of the world to ride a bike for that long too.
Yeah,
Straight to the gut.
Yeah, well, he's a world class at this sport and had been in America and I think won the Trans Am, which is kind of similar. It's from Portland to Virginia, so it's across America, but that's nearly 7,000 kilometres, so that's actually even longer again, it's quite hilly. And which I've just come back from, he came second in the Tour Divide, which is from Banff in Canada to Antelope Wells, the Mexican border, which is a mountain bike race, not on-road. So, yeah, he had this vision of bringing this race, and it was gaining this insane momentum. So I think it was 80 starters, and then as it just kept getting this popularity and getting in the news, and as it was going through Adelaide, like the Premier of Adelaide had come out into onto a part of the course, which is like you kind of map it out via GPS, and like to greet the riders and stuff, which almost was a nod back to 100 years ago when these people setting these record attempts, like all the townsfolk would come out to see this rider coming through. Yeah. So unfortunately, a guy that was also one of the best in the world, Mike Hall, lost his life in Canberra. So he was hit by a car at 6 o'clock in the morning on a stretch called the Monaro Highway. So it was an amazing race that was gaining this like crescendo, and it was Christophe Allegaert, who's Belgian, and Michael, who's British, were like pretty much neck and neck the whole way, and it was ending. Yeah, it was getting an insane amount of coverage and eyes on it. So yeah, it was really sad.
Oh man!
And it kind of
sucked.
killed the race off officially in that accident, and then it's kind of had this half-life of this unofficial race. So every year, people will still race it, but it just doesn't have the high profile that it did the first time.
It's not an official race anymore.
No,
it's not an official event.
Yeah, but that's kind of the thing with this type of racing is it's kind of community based. Yeah. So it's like, yep, we're going to meet here at this time. You know, once 7 o'clock hits in the morning, then that's it, and we'll see you at the other end, kind of thing. Yeah, right.
Man, that's so sad, isn't it? Fuck.
It is.
And
it kind
is there much of that in the sport? Because road racing
just had a guy.
Dangerous.
Yeah, they just had a guy lose his life on the course that I had just completed a couple of months ago. A 67-year-old guy was like 100 miles from the finish. Oh, like just touring the route, like wasn't racing and was collected by a car on like a dead straight road.
One of my good buddies' grandpa was hit in his morning ride down to Mount Eliza and died. He was only like he was his grandfather at the time, so he was an older boy, but he was only like 61 or something. You know, had plenty of years left. Yeah, that's such a bummer. But I mean, I guess everything has its risks, doesn't it? Everything we do.
It does. It's like a mitigated risk. So it's kind of at work and like working on construction sites and stuff. You can say so. You have like a consequence and a like, it's not coincidence, like likelihood. So it's kind of, you really got to, you go, oh, how can I lower the likelihood and how can I lower the consequence and how can I, kind of like work out on this mathematical equation, the least likely consequence and risk,
Yeah, you have to be really smart about it. Yeah. I have a buddy who's a professional skydiver, and he's talked to me about similar things. And it's actually so sad in their sport. Man.
Yeah,
he's a skydiver
because you consider
base jumper.
Yeah,
you know?
And you consider that the consequence, there would never be a consequence that would be lower than
really
serious injuries and stuff.
That's right. And because he doesn't go on social media too much. Tommy Sirra, he's been on the show a bunch of times, so listeners would know when I say Tommy Sirra, people that have listened all the way back. But his Facebook is filled up with just, like the in memoriam posts or whatever people put up, like, oh man, I wish you were, around. We had such great times together. It just seems like the only time I see Sirra on Facebook is like every probably 3 months, like one of his mates passes away. But that's probably the most high risk sport in the world, really, based on being skydiving. Let's be real about it. But so let's getting off that part of the topic. So when you said so this race throughout Australia, so it's 4 or 5 days, did you say?
The one across Australia was approximately 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Yeah.
I don't know where I got 4 or 5 days from.
There'll be certain records between cities and stuff that would be in that time period.
But so I don't know why I thought that, but you said it was in one stage?
Correct. So
what does that mean?
It means
you just go at your own pace. There's no the clock doesn't stop and start when you go to have your nights. And
exactly. Yeah.
Really. So you just do it in your own time.
And get
it done.
And that's kind of where I kind of excel in it, as opposed to conventional bike riding, which I'm somewhat slow or slow-ish, is managing all that stuff around the outside. So I suppose when you look at the Tour de France and conventional bike racing or conventional endurance racing or conventional racing or whatever, like running, it's like maintaining that threshold, making sure that you're eating. But then when you're going to ultra distance racing, that's you kind of do think about that, but you're not really riding at a threshold, you're riding at a pace that you can maintain. But it's maintaining all that things around you. So like saddle sores, that's a really big one. Issues with your hands, your back could get sore. You could run out of boredom. Yeah, that's probably mentally is the hardest part.
I would imagine.
It's like not making the next gas station or petrol station in time, and then they don't have any food. It's like, well, now you're faced with a pretty hard decision. Do you push on for another 200 kilometres and try and get by, or mechanical issues? So it's kind of, and sleep's probably one of the biggest ones as well. So it's not really riding about the bike, and it has very little to do with your fitness while being on the bike, but it's managing everything around you.
Yeah, for sure. It's being a project manager.
Yeah.
Project management race.
Well,
it's kind of like Test cricket.
Yeah.
That's why are you a cricket fan?
I played cricket when I was a little kid, and I was really, really bad.
Yeah, right. Fair enough. I've never played, but
I was so bad that we had someone on our team that had Down syndrome, and he was above me in both the batting and the bowling order.
Hey Nick, you're not playing today, mate.
And he got a 4 in one season. I was like, all I want to do is to fucking get a 4. Never got a 4. Always got nicks and slips and stuff. And I was like, yeah, this cricket thing ain't for me.
Do you know my cricketing career? Played one game for Sereno in under 14s. We bowled Mount Eliza out for 9. My mate Matty Burns took 7 for 3. It was great. The only time they wouldn't let me bat.
They must have thought, like, man, this guy's a prodigy. I don't even know why we have him playing.
It's the good luck charm. So they wouldn't let me bat, but in the field I touched the ball once, and we just changed. I didn't really understand that I wasn't really paying attention. Put it that way. I didn't understand that the ends had changed, and the wicketkeeper was, instead of being down the other end. So I'm down. I don't know the parts of the cricket field, so I'm down here, for example.
Imagine there's an infographic overlay as well. You do.
Yeah.
Way explaining this.
So anyway, it's the over has changed, and the wicketkeeper's basically about 10 metres in front of me. I thought he was up the other end of the pitch. Oh. So I've gone for this throw up to the other end of the pitch. I've thrown it off to the left, and about 20 metres overthrow. So instead of just basically could have underarmed it to my mate about 10 metres in front of me, I've just thrown this ball. It's gone about 50 metres. It might have gone for a 4, I don't know. But then I made a really impressive comeback at my mate's wedding in Crescent Head about 2 years ago. I just got off the plane from Mexico. I flew straight to the wedding. I was best man and MC. I got dogged. I got really screwed over there. And what happened was we were playing backyard cricket and I got to bowling over and I took 2 wickets. And then I got to bat because I took wickets in that over. Then when I went into bat, I hit a 6 in my first ball. I just threw the bat away, walked away, so I'm done. So now I'm a champion cricketer in my own mind. I've finished on top, you know.
And you were playing by Mexican rules as well.
Yeah, you had to wear sombreros, skull cervases at the end. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, the reason I said the cricket thing is that it sounds like I like Test cricket because it's a thinking man's game, you know. It's a competitive, you know, you can totally outplay. Like you just said, fitness doesn't really matter all that much. Like in cricket, you can totally outplay your opponent in terms of like bowling and batting and so on and so forth, but you can declare at the wrong time. The rain can fuck you over. You can bat. You can choose to bowl instead of bat. Whatever it is, it can backfire on you because you didn't think your way through it well enough, which I think is fascinating. That's why, you know, I think people that don't understand the sport, they don't get as much out of it as people that really do understand it because it's not a spectator sport unless you really know what's going on, you know, the intricacies. And I suppose it sounds like this racing is as much of a tactical... it's like a game of chess, nearly. Not against someone, but like with yourself, I feel like.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is at the end of the day, you're ultimately like racing yourself. So it's like it's mentally enduring the discomfort.
Yeah.
So you're constantly like, and kind of understanding that like your moods and everything in you is so fragile, but like, you know, even a few days in, that your moods can change at like the slightest thing. So you could, you know, you drop a can of Coke on the ground and then you're like, this is the worst day ever. It's going to be, but that's the thing, you're thinking in these absolutes.
Yeah.
And then...
I fucking hate dropping a can of Coke. Yeah. I'll be honest. I'm like that. This is the worst day ever.
Yeah. Well, especially when you have like myself with caffeine dependency and like you're on the limit of like... You know, that can of Coke would have to last you kind of the afternoon. The energy in that.
Yeah, that's the sugar that you actually really need to keep you going.
So, or you could, or like see a nice sunset or something and it keeps you really motivated. So you're having these like really peaks and troughs of your emotions and quite often you're not thinking completely rationally and stuff like that. But it is a battle of... against yourself with your mind and stuff. And you honestly, you could, you know, have to walk through a river or there's a muddy section and, you know, you're up to your knees in mud and you're like, it's just going to be terrible for the next, you know, week or couple of weeks or whatever you got left. And then it's like, you've just got to kind of wait it out and eventually, you know, the bad times pass and
like all things mental health, I guess, or thoughts and moods and so forth.
And that's the thing, is like the stuff that you use to apply to the tools that you use to apply yourself to riding across the country, which I've now done nearly 3 times now, is the tools that you use in everyday life.
Yeah, that's interesting. So when you're on the bike, so you say that, you know, say it's a 3-week race or whatever, and obviously sleep is paramount, but how many hours a day are you actually on the bike?
Between a short day would be 16 and a long day would probably be between, I don't know, 20, 21.
What?
Yeah. It's but...
That's not good for you.
Yeah, you're on it. But if you're trying to get near the pointy end, you'd be on it a lot.
Yeah? Wouldn't there be a point of diminishing returns with lack of sleep? Surely.
Nah, well, that's the thing is,
Sleep's
like,
so important,
it's crazy how your body can deal with not sleeping.
Right. So you think that for a period of time, for 2 or 3 weeks, we know what we have to achieve now. The body knows what the mind is telling the body what we have to do.
Yeah.
You think it doesn't affect performance, so you're just using those extra hours to get extra capability.
Well, it's that continual moving forward, and it's like where you lose a lot of the time is predominantly on stopping. So it's very rare that someone would like win a race from being the fastest. The fastest on the road.
Yep.
It would be they stop the least.
Really?
So like like typically, all right, so we'll use the Indian Pacific, we'll race for an example. So there's 200 kilometres between towns on the Nullarbor Plain.
Indian Pacific. So this is the one you talked about earlier.
Yes, this is the one
Yep.
from Perth to Sydney.
Yep.
All on road.
Indian Pacific. Yeah, gotcha.
So, you'd get to a gas station. You're like, okay, well, I need to eat something that has vegetables in it, that has
Veggie
fibre in
pasty.
it.
Veggie pasty.
Veggie pasty.
Yeah. That would dead set be what you would be eating to get vegetables in a lot of time, though, right?
Yeah, veggie pasty, like steak sandwich or egg sandwich with tomato and lettuce and stuff. And you're like, all right, so now I need to grab, 200 kilometres. I always break everything down into time. So 200 kilometres is roughly 10 hours on the bike.
Yep.
I need to kind of eat something every hour. I eat a lot. So I have to eat something pretty much every hour of maybe 200-300 calories. So that's about 2,000-3,000 calories that you're looking in that period. At the bare minimum, probably you want nearly double that, ideally.
Yep.
So whether it be like grab a loaf of bread, grab... And that's the thing, is like when you're working in these remote towns, it's not like the middle of the city where we live. You know, you can just kind of get... I'll just get a
double shot cappuccino, egg latte with a slash of a...
But you can't get like vegetable salad or anything like that. It's because you're in these remote locations where they can't even get like fresh vegetables and stuff. It's the desert.
Yep.
So it's like they can only get frozen food. So you're like, well, I'll... chocolate bars.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
And America...
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing when you're hiking Mount Everest. You know, you'll eat 2 or 3 actual meals.
Yeah.
But then you'll just eat Snickers bars.
Yeah,
Or the equivalent.
So where I just come from in the Tour Divide, so you'd be in the middle of Montana, a gas station, you're like, all right, well, I'll get 10 Cliff Bars, I'll get three frozen burritos. Yeah. And then you're like, I'll just warm them up on my back or whatever. Yeah, like just warm them up in the environment. I'll get a couple of honey buns and I'll get 2 steak sandwiches that or whatever sandwiches that I'll eat now.
Yeah.
And then
you just carry a little backpack, do you? Put it all in a little backpack.
I try not to carry anything on my back because
sores again.
Because saddle sores, you kind of don't want any because I've got a really weak back, anyways. But
you don't want any friction on the body. So you got a little stash on the bike somewhere?
Yeah, so like the bike will have... This is another infographic that we're overlaying. So the bike will have...
We're going to have to hire someone for the infographics now.
Yeah. So it has... So I have a reasonably... Maybe like a 5 litres, maybe? Or I think it's between 3 and 5 litre bag on the back. So they'll have like a bivvy sack. So that's what I sleep in. You probably might have used that in hiking. Or like an emergency one anyways.
Yeah.
So it's like a reflective... It's like an aluminium foil sack kind of thing.
Yeah, you get them in your first aid kits.
Yeah, so you kind of sleep in a slightly bigger version of that in a ditch on the side of the road. I'd have like a little foam. It's like a 3 or 4 mil foam mat, so it's just enough that I can pass out on. So I'll have that right up on the front. Yeah, and then just use the rest of the space for food. A few like spares for the bike that you might need, like tubes and stuff are pretty important. If you get so you pretty much want to pack. You want to have everything that, like within reason, that you can't stop you. So you like a flat tire will stop you, or braking. Sometimes a spoke, like something as simple as a spoke, can break and kind of end your race. So you want to have like spares that within reason that you can carry. That and you break shit all the time. Like my in the last race I was in, my shoes got so worn that the cleats, so it's like a little metal thing when you clip your feet in on the pedals. Both of those are ripped out the bottom of my shoes.
Man, this sounds like an absolute ordeal.
Yeah, it's lots of fun.
So in order of like, what's the biggest risk to you doing well? Because you mentioned about 17 things, like saddle sores, food, sleep,
animals,
your
conditions.
Conditions, animals, did you say?
Yeah, so like in America, like grizzly bears, like mountain lions, wolves and stuff.
Mountain lions, saber-toothed tigers, raptors,
T-Rexes.
Far out.
Yeah, so the bears was like a real concern. But that's the thing, when you look at the statistics, and especially what's just happened the last couple of weeks, is like a collision with a car. Even though that there is a risk with bears all the time, quite often the circumstances can be like, so the consequence can be quite catastrophic. But like, you really need to be mindful all the time with bears. So you can't just have like you can't have half-eaten like honey buns or cinnamon rolls in your bag because bears can sniff like a carcass 20 miles away. So like from here to Frankston, they can smell.
Yeah.
So you don't want to have stuff that bears can sniff out. And like a guy from Texas, a few days before, he was just camping illegally before the race had started.
Oh, right. So are we talking here mainly with the risk factor with the bear when you're sleeping on the side of the road?
Yeah.
Not when you're on the bike.
Yeah, they won't chase you.
Oh, bro, I'm just thinking, fucking how quick are these bears?
Well, they can run faster than you. But like
right.
if you get in between a mother and a cub, which, you know, that is, I don't know if the summer season is when they do have cubs, I suppose, in that time of year.
Yep.
Like if one's aggressive, then you can be in trouble.
Yeah, right. But when you're sleeping, so it's like when I've gone to Yosemite National Park and you have to lock all your food up in the bear cages.
And they are herbivores too, so they don't eat people for nutrition, but they can attack you. Yeah.
Yeah, they can just fuck you up.
Whereas I suppose mountain lions are kind of the opposite. They do. Well, not eat people, but they eat other animals. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So animal attack is a genuine risk. So what are the other? If you were to say what's the thing that slows you down the most? The thing that is the biggest risk? Is it like weather?
Yeah.
Everyone's under the same sky though. So like
kind of. Well,
so if you just got caught in a bad patch, say 1 week in, because I imagine that you could be a day ahead, a day behind, and still be going back and forth, right? Okay, cool. So if you just get caught in the wrong weather pattern and you just...
Exactly. And it's like... even in Australia, so across the Nullarbor Plain, headwinds, so they really slow you up, and high temperature. So like you're going through a lot more water to try and get your body temperature down. In America, it was very much... so dealing with snow... dealing with like sub-zero temperatures. Once you kind of cross over into New Mexico and the elevation drops away, it's like bushfires and high temperatures. So if it's really, really hot, it's not really that wise to push on in the heat of the day. So generally a lot of people will try and sleep like between like maybe like 2 and 6 o'clock when the temperatures are really high, providing obviously that you can get
for a nap.
Providing that you can get shade and
and then ride in the night. Yeah,
ride in the dark. But then if you're riding at night, then if you're going through small towns, like the shops are closed, so it's kind of like a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah, it's another thing that you have to really strategize around.
So it's all this, and it's kind of just you can plan it to a T as much as you like, but generally it never goes to plan, and you'll either be it's very rare that you'll ever be in front of where you want to be, but you'll often be behind.
Interesting. So I feel like mentally it would probably be the toughest aspect. Or well, obviously you've said weather is obviously the thing that could slow you down the most and so forth, but the mental aspect would be huge.
Yep.
And you mentioned that earlier. I did a ride. I rode for the best part of 17 days on a motorbike. From Vietnam, from Saigon to Hanoi, and that was one of the best things I've ever done. It was really, really great.
Yeah.
And what I did was, I just started riding at the start of the day, and I didn't really, because of Adventure Fit, and my whole life had been around planning itineraries and we need to be here at this time, and we need to do this and that. That's never how I've travelled. And then when I had Adventure Fit, that became even further from how I would want to travel. So what I'll do, which wasn't a great system for a ride like I did, but I just start the day riding and then I just figure out where I'd end up that night. Whenever I got a bit tired, whenever the sun started to go down or whatever. And it actually screwed me over a little bit because I couldn't find towns. I was riding through, typhoon-like, storms and whatever.
Yeah.
But it was, even for me, for a race like, that wasn't a race, for a ride like that, mentally, because at certain periods, I'd be like, right, I'm going to go past this town. And then I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't want to ride for another 2 hours. And on the GPS, the only thing I could say, I'm probably going to have to stay here. I'm like, I don't want to go 2 more hours, but I don't want to go backwards, So, and then it would start fucking thundering down on me.
Yeah.
And my light would fucking break and whatever I'd have. So I have a very, very small imagination of imagining of how it would be for you guys. But how do you stay positive mentally? How do you, for example, listen to anything? That would
I do. Like listen to a lot of music and podcasts. I suppose it's
how do you charge stuff? That's what, because I would think that would be great, but I was thinking also how would you logistically do that? Solar chargers.
Take little battery packs. Yeah. The front hub they've kind of really modernised them. I suppose when your mum had her bike that had the, it's like a little dynamo. It's called like a bottle dynamo, and it goes on the side of the wheel. And it's a little generator.
Yep.
Like a little alternator. So it's like a more advanced one of those that goes in the front wheel hub of your bike.
And charges your stuff.
Yeah, but we'll only charge it when when you're going a steady speed and you have to be a certain speed above. Yep. So quite often, if you're in like pretty tough terrain, like it's not going to do anything.
Yeah, gotcha.
Because your speed's up and down, or you're going quite slowly. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you so obviously like you got some music, you got some podcasts, but when you don't have that stuff, like how do you stay mentally in the game? Like what are your techniques?
Well, it's kind of when you start it, it's you make that agreement with yourself. You're like, I will finish this no matter what, even if I'll walk the end of it if it comes to it. So it's kind of when you really am struggling, you have to kind of have that moment of clarity, and you're like, well, I made the agreement that I'm going to finish this, so I'm going to finish this. So it's like very much you need a bank of bad experience to draw back down on.
Yeah.
So you've got to have that perspective. I've seen a few movies and stuff that have kind of come out about people attempting like really long rides or something quite arduous, and they'll go into it like a couple of hours in and go, this is the worst day of my life, which is like, and in that moment in time it is, because that's their perspective.
Yeah.
But like you've eventually trained to the point, and you've eventually had that experience bank enough of it that it's put in perspective like, well, gee, I'm having a really shit time. But a year and a half ago, I was having a way worse time over here. So it's very much like, so you talk about riding across Vietnam and having a really, really tough day. So it's like the next time you're there, or a week later, you're having a tough day. You're like, well, it's a tough day, but it's not as tough as what I've just had. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually talking about business stress the other day, and how I don't find Athena, the company that I run now, like nothing about it stresses me out. And I think that's because of the stress that I went through with Adventure Fit. Like it was unfathomably stressful every time we ran a trip, because we were like scratching for money.
Yeah.
So every 3 months I'd go through this like mental breakdown of like stress.
Yeah.
Not a mental breakdown, but it was really, really heavy duty stress.
Yeah.
And then now I understand that full well, because now I think of that. I'm like, you know what? This is not bad at all. I've been through way worse stuff than this. Does that make sense?
And you really need
to... You don't catastrophize it, I guess.
Yeah, and you got to have that moment of clarity, and you're like, all right, well, if I remove the emotion out of this, what is actually really going wrong?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I'm stuck in a storm at the moment. I'm sitting in a public toilet. Well, it's not ideal, and I'm losing time, but at this point in time, like, I'm safe. There's walls around me. I'll just have to wait this storm out to be able to push on. And but at the time, you're not thinking rationally, like, everything's going down the drain. I'm losing positions and stuff. It's like, and that did happen. Yeah. Unfortunately, through the Rockies, in particular Colorado and northern New Mexico, it rains every day and has lightning storms. And that guy that I mentioned earlier that organised that ride from Perth to Sydney, that race from Perth to Sydney, was more or less struck by lightning, and he still came second in the race. So he was struck by lightning, had complete memory blank, ended up on someone's bed thinking he was in The Wizard of Oz, and then
he probably was.
Yeah, and still managed to get his shit together and come second. So
you guys are savages.
Yeah,
you guys should be UFC fighters. Just get in there and just ride your bike around, just punch. You'd probably be able to endure more pain than most UFC fighters would. That's crazy. That's so funny. So how do you prepare for a race like that? What's the training like?
I have a pretty structured... At the start, it would just be right until it was painful.
Yeah, which is how long for you?
Yeah, it's a little while now, but we would... so they have the World Tour, which is like Tour de France and stuff. They go to Adelaide every year in January.
Yep.
So we ride from Melbourne to Adelaide essentially in one go, stopping for a couple of hours halfway. And that's a good way to train, because it's like when you're with other people, like you're like, oh, my back's sore, or gee, I could just stop for 5 minutes. It's like when you're with other people, it's kind of like you keep pushing because you don't want to be the one behind.
Yep.
Yeah. But and that comes back to like a banking on having that bank of bad experiences. Like you go through that, and you're like, gee, this is really the worst day of my life. And it's like, well, nothing's really gone wrong. Like I'm still turning the pedals and stuff, and I'm hydrated and somewhat reasonably fed. So it's like, there's nothing really stopping me from keeping going. Yeah. It's just, I feel a bit sad.
yeah. I'm just fucking miserable.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. So this last ride that you did that we were talking about the other day, for people, obviously, well, most people wouldn't know, but me and Nico go to gym together. So at gym, you were telling me about the ride in through the US.
We're actually really just a quick side note on that. So Abdullah Zainab, he's currently one of the best in the world. I keep saying one of the best in the world because I'm really fortunate. I know like maybe 5 or 3 or 4 of the top 10 in the world.
Yeah, cool.
He just won the Trans Am, which is from Portland to Virginia.
Yep.
He actually went to PTC.
Yeah.
And he met his girlfriend there as well. Jess used to go to PTC as well.
Really?
Yeah, this is kind of before all of us kind of come along. But Andrew knows him and stuff.
Really?
Shout out to Andrew. I don't know.
Nah, don't shout out Andrew. Scrub that out, that section. That's classic. So, but just so when we're talking about, this most recent race, I remember being blown away by the statistics of like where it was and how long it was. Can you explain it to the audience, I guess?
So, and that's the thing. It's like when you look at just the figures itself, it's mind-blowing just to wrap your mind around it. So it's 4,500 kilometres. It's the record currently is like 14 days, which obviously when they started the race, they never thought 10 years ago that someone could ever do it in that time.
Yep.
It involves 30, I think it's like 37 mountain passes. Mm-hmm. So you go over 37 mountains. The highest altitude is, well, I suppose if you go to Nepal and stuff, it's probably not that high. But if you're someone like me that lives at the beach, it is high. It's 3,600 metres.
Oh, that's definitely high.
Is quite high, yeah.
That's high for anyone, really.
Yes. And
not every space camp high, obviously, but that's high, especially for sport.
Especially for sport, and especially when you're like pushing yourself, your body's under an increased amount of stress. They have roughly 200 starters. When that started 10 years ago, they had 10 or 15. So it's that shows you the explosion and the participation rate. So out of 200 starters, approximately 50 or 60 finished.
Really? Wow.
I think I came about 30th or something like that. And I also raced at single speed, just as a side note. So I raced it without gears.
Yep.
So there's like a separate classification.
Why'd you do that? Challenge.
That was the only bike I had.
Yeah, right.
I only had one gear. I was like,
had a flat on the other bike.
So yeah, when you try and wrap your head around it, it's like just on those figures alone, you're like, it's impossible, but it's amazing. Providing that you've got food and water, it's surprising how far you can push yourself, yeah. And it's quite often, and a lot of people turn around and say, oh, well, I could never do that. And it's like, well, I hope that like what I'm championing is that anyone can do it. Like I'm not...
You're an average bloke.
Yeah, I'm just the average Joe. I'm representing the everyman. And like if it's surprising what can be achieved when you put your mind to it. Yeah.
4,500 kilometres, you said. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. And then I think
and from where to where? Portland to.
Oh, so that was from Banff in Canada.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it goes through Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico.
To Mexico. Whereabouts in Mexico? Just.
Sorry, New Mexico. So it's
New Mexico to the border, pretty much.
Yeah. They call it Trump's Wall.
Yeah, right. Wow, that's some amazing scenery to ride through. That's like all national park.
It is
capital of the universe. Really,
it is,
all those areas you just mentioned.
Yeah, and like I was fortunate enough to visit Lake Louise.
Oh,
before starting, which is probably like one of the most photographed places in the world.
I was talking about Lake Louise 2 days ago, I reckon, with someone in the gym. With who was it? Chanel, I think it was.
Oh yeah.
She's gone to Canada, and I was talking about the fact that my mate Leon, he did when we both went to school together, 33, so it would have been for sure 10 years ago. He was living in Canada. Side note, Leon was paid. He was 22. Somehow he got a job. He was paid by the AFL to teach young Canadian kids how to play footy. That's what he did over there for 6 months. He just went around to schools kicking the footy with these little kids.
Trying to like scope out like hidden talent or something like that.
Just trying to promote the game internationally, I guess.
Yeah.
Not even talent-wise. They were like, from what I remember him telling me, primary school kids, just trying to grow the sport and the awareness of it, I guess. So, which does end in more people playing it and talent and idols, I guess. But it was fascinating. But anyway, so Leon put up a photo when he was at Lake Louise. I remember it was probably like early days of Facebook, because it would have been like 2008, 2009. It was one of his first profile pictures. I just remember being on Facebook, and he put up this photo, just the typical like, posy on that little wharf that they have. And then it was right at the time when it must have just thawed or gone from being frozen over. It's because the trees on the side of the mountains and stuff were all frosted with snow still. But the lake was the lake. It wasn't ice. And he took the photo, just a regular photo, put it up as his profile picture. And I remember reaching out to him straight away. I said, mate, where the fuck are you? Tell me right now. And since
is that a Bob Ross painting or something like that that you've just photoshopped yourself in front?
That's right. I couldn't believe it. Since that day, it's been... India's the place I want to travel to most if you think of a country. But if you think of one actual place on the planet, I want to go to Lake Louise, number one, I reckon.
Yeah.
Since that day. Crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
What time of year were you there?
Well, it's just before the summer solstice, which is when... So, like, the race started on June 14th or something like that.
Yep.
So, and it's amazing, like, because you can hike all the little mountains off to the side, and even up the top of those, it's still snow. Like, it's still pretty icy.
Sure. Unreal. So, what are some of the... so, this is this race that you just competed in. What's the name of it again? Say it again.
So, that's the Tour Divide.
Tour Divide, yeah.
Yeah, right. And it's the route. So, it's a fixed route. It's called the Great Divide mountain bike route. And a lot of people hike it as well. So, they have the Continental Divide. So, people will take 6 months off work and just hike the whole thing as well. Yeah.
That's insane. So, what are the... Like, how does this rank on... One of the questions that I wanted to ask basically was I wanted to know what the wildest races are worldwide in endurance cycling. So, like, where does this rank, and like, what are some of the ones that you might know of that are the most intense, the most crazy?
Yeah, well, they've got we'll call the Tour Divide the granddaddy of them.
Really?
Because it's been around the longest.
Full on. So that's the number one, really.
Kind of, yeah. Probably
the one that everyone wants to do most, kind of.
Yeah, in participation.
Yep.
And like size and stuff.
And that was the first time you did it?
Correct, yeah.
Oh, you must have loved it. That's great.
Yeah, but a lot of people come back year on year on.
Yeah.
And stuff. We've got... They're all kind of broken down into universes, like with social media and stuff. So stuff pops up, but it's quite often stuff will come up slightly outside of your universe and reach and stuff. So you might not... something might exist, but you might not see it. And it's kind of like... Even talking back to the gym and stuff, there might be like a crew of people or something that might just be outside the bubble, like of where you, of social media that you operate. So there could be someone doing something similar, but you might not ever know about it because they're outside. But the stuff that I see we'll call it my bubble, is they've got one at the moment that is so difficult that they've only really had one or two people finish. And there's currently only one person, I think, still racing at the moment. It's called the Terra Australis. So it's for Australian listeners, it's from the top of Cape York to Wilson's Prom.
Oh, really?
So it's the length of Australia, but a lot of it is like sand and stuff. It's that's insane intense. I'm preparing for next year, and it just finished as well, which hopefully it kind of ties in with work and whatnot. The Silk Road mountain race.
Oh, that sounds like
so that's quite short compared to stuff that I've done in the past, only 2,000 kilometers. But it's so remote, and it is made up of mountain passes, but they don't have trees there. So
is that like Siberia or?
It's called Kyrgyzstan, so it's in between.
Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah, or I'm pronouncing it Kyrgyzstan, or
Kyrgyzstan.
Kyrgyzstan, that's
Kyrgyzstan,
one.
yeah.
Always my Australian Ocker thing. It is definitely Kyrgyzstan. So it's between,
There's a lot of stands that I don't know about, so it could be one. I don't really know.
There's so many stands I don't even know where they are. So that's between China and Russia on the Silk Road. So that just finished, but that was wild. Like, you know, I think they got like 6 hours in, and that was already like blizzards and snow, and it's like intense heat when you're in the valleys and stuff. And there's no tree, like kind of like a bit different to Australia and America. There's no trees, so you can't hide. So you've got to like keep pushing.
Far out.
And that's really high on the list.
What about food at one like that? I feel like there'd be less truck stops and...
yeah, well, they have a thing called a yurt, which is like a fabric tent. And, just kind of drink goat's milk and bread. Bread and jam, that's kind of what they... That's kind of like the diet in Kyrgyzstan.
You're a psycho.
So
that's actually that's top level stuff in Kyrgyzstan, probably.
Yeah, that's up market, yeah. But I'm really keen for that, and I'm really hoping to get... But yeah, it's an insane amount of climbing. It is quite difficult. They have one across Europe called the Transcontinental, which is like...
I don't know why, but just when you said they have one against Europe, across Europe, I was like, when you said there was a race in Europe, after you told me the one that's basically through like the Silk Road and through Kyrgyzstan, I instantly just thought the Europe one would be easy.
Yeah, well, Europe's not too remote, but like it's done at a pretty hard pace. Yeah, gotcha. So that's probably more based around road speed, and I think the one across Europe, you kind of has a certain amount of checkpoints, so you kind of pick your own route. Whereas a lot of pretty much all the other ones, you have to stay on the track. Yeah.
So when you're doing these races, this is something that I wanted to ask when you right at the start came to mind. But when you say this, the Australian race that we just did, any race, say the Tour Divide, that you just did. So, do you look at the route and you actually figure out places you want to eat? Do you have to actually go ahead and do that? Or?
A lot of planning is required, yeah.
Yeah,
kind of the ones that are really well known and they don't change the route year on year. There's not much planning that goes into it because, like, all the towns are pretty well known already.
Yep.
But especially doing a race that it's the inaugural event, or there's one called Race to the Rock, which I've done last year. Yeah, so that was from the bottom of Tasmania to Uluru. And that changes every year. So you have to plan, if you're going into it, the truck stops and roadhouses and stuff aren't known. So you have to kind of, through Google Maps or whatever, you've got to try and suss out where everything is.
Fuck. That's crazy.
It kind of adds to the romance. Like, I don't know, when you go out on holiday, you kind of go, I'll jump on TripAdvisor and read all the reviews and try and go, I'll definitely go here and check this out and stuff.
Oh, it would be fun. It would be super exciting doing that, I reckon.
Yeah, I work in mapping, so it's kind of second nature with me.
Yeah.
I work on Excel spreadsheets a lot, so it's quite easy for me. I'll spend all the time doing it, yeah.
Man, it sounds so exciting. It sounds just... Oh, man. I hate bike riding. I just do. I hate swimming. I hate running. I don't like any of it. But
I hate cyclists. Oh, there's fuckers on the road. Oh, God.
This ride I did in Vietnam, I'll do another few in my life for sure, I reckon, long motorbike rides. So this dude said to me, and it would be, I think it's totally different to yours because yours is just pain, right? Yours is pain and endurance.
Yeah.
When you're on a motorbike,
I hope it's not too much pain, but discomfort, yeah.
Discomfort, yeah. Whereas when you're on a motorbike, it takes it out of your body and it can be a little bit on your mind and so forth. But it's nothing pain-wise. It's not painful. It's just not. So it's actually quite enjoyable, I feel like, even though it's a bit of a slog. But because I remember this dude, I met him. So when you do this one through Vietnam, you start in Saigon. Again, it's going to be an infographic.
Yep.
And then going to Hanoi. And then right in the middle, there's Hue. So you ride to Hue. I hired a bike and there was the number one bike hiring place in all of Vietnam. They have just one place in Saigon and one place in Hanoi. So you start at the bottom and you take it to the top.
Just quickly, was this a reconnaissance ride for Adventure Fit or did you already have people with you?
No, it was actually... that was the first holiday I went on that I planned myself in years.
Oh, wow.
Since I started Adventure Fit. I'd tacked on a day or two here, maybe 5 days here and there on the end or before an Adventure Fit trip.
That's pretty cool because at that time of your life, you were planning holidays.
No.
So to have that kind of elite holiday for yourself,
it was all time. It was actually really great.
Yeah.
And I thought about that a lot. I was like, oh man, I actually have the ability for the first time in so long to take some time away and actually plan my own holiday. Yeah. So it was the first time in years, actually, and it was really great. So I decided to ride the length of the country. In Hue, right in the middle of the country, they have the place where you hire the bikes from. They have a service centre.
Yeah.
So basically, you just hope that your bike makes it to there, and half the time they don't. And then, like they break. They're shit bikes, and the roads are pretty sketchy from time to time, depending what route you go. But I remember getting to Hue, and I pulled in. And there was another guy, he pulled in just before me. He was kind of getting off his bike or just after me. I can't really remember. And he was an Aussie guy. I could just tell straight away. I'm like, hey, mate, how you going? He goes, yeah, good. I said, you doing the ride? I said, yep. I said, what direction are you going? He said, I'm going north to south. I said, I'm going south to north. It was literally like looking in a mirror, man. And this guy just having a chat. And I said, man, it's so fucking great out there, isn't it? And he goes, the guy looked at me, and it sounds a bit corny maybe, but he looked at me and he goes, mate, it's the ultimate freedom. And I literally went, wow.
He wasn't watching Sons of Anarchy on DVD at the mechanic shop or something.
We hugged, and then, it was great.
Yeah.
But, no, it was actually funny. When he said it, I was like, oh, man, that's exactly how I would explain it.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been... It sounds corny, but it's the perfect way to, like, it was just you and the road, and I would just ride and have silence and just my own thoughts. I would listen to podcasts, I would listen to music, I would listen to a handful of books. And some of the best times are actually when you were like caught in a storm for me, and you were really up against it, and it was like, fuck, how am I going to get out of this situation I'm in? But it also, I was creating my own story of something that I had done in my life. I was like, oh, this is such a different experience. I was like, I remember at one point I was riding through just a torrential, like I'm talking like typhoon level storm, with the lights on the bike of my, that would go like about as far as my iPhone would go. And then, you'd only see a house every 10 or 20 minutes. I was riding through the border of Laos and Vietnam through the jungles. You'd see a house every like 10 or 20 minutes, and you'd stop in, get under shelter. There'd be other bike riders there that'd be, It was really, it was tough, but it was really great. So this conversation's actually fired me up to not get on a push bike, but to try and start to plan. Because I think the reason I started talking about that was the planning side of it. Because I love the sitting down and nutting out. Like, I don't write itineraries when I travel, but I research the shit out of joints. So I know that, I know where I should go and where I want to go. And then if I go there, if I don't, or, whatever. But
and you certainly don't want to like miss out and like visit a place and go, well, this is all the time I've got allocated, and there's something like way cooler. Or way else around the corner. Yeah. You
want to know what's around. You want to know. You want to know what the options are, I reckon. So, cool. So when we were talking about before the show, I was like, yeah, right. So, Nico, like, what are some interesting points around the bike riding stuff? So, you mentioned that you've been through some stuff, mental health wise, and so forth, and eating disorders and stuff. So, and then you're also straight edge and vegan. So, how did that whole thing all come about?
So, I studied at RMIT and stuff, and would kind of get on the terps a little bit. Never really... I don't think alcohol really took to me. Like, I did enjoy it, but I would never come home, like, after a long day and go, gee, I really could smash a beer or something like that.
I don't get that either.
I'm like, I just really want to smash something cold.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait for a sarsaparilla tonight. A couple of sarspies.
So I was a really, really big kid throughout high school. So we'll rewind back to the start.
Like weight-wise?
Like weight-wise, right. Yeah. I was been pretty much this height since I was like, I don't know, 13, 14.
Yeah.
And then just kind of stayed this height forever.
Yeah.
But, had a kind of was quite overweight and just gone through a rough time at high school. Like you and I went to high school around the same time and also around the corner from each other. And I didn't really, I felt like I didn't really have a place anywhere. I was kind of spread really thin, and I wasn't really good at anything. Like academically, I was not great. Didn't do well at any sports. Didn't really have that many friends. And then, yeah, kind of just come to like, you know, the tender age of like 15, 16 and stuff, when you start really getting interested in girls and stuff, you're like, gee, I'm really not going to do well, like looking like I look now. Yeah. So I just kind of
I'm up against it here.
Yeah. So I just tried at the gym, but not really. I guess there wasn't just a lot of information at that time, because like the internet had kind of started, but it wasn't to the point of like information wasn't so readily available.
Yeah, where you could go and train yourself and get actual results.
Yeah, and there wasn't like this kind of peer-to-peer knowledge sharing. It's just kind of like, I suppose if you're 16 now and you want to like learn about how to get in a shape, you know, there's probably been hundreds of thousands of bits of information that people have written, or if not millions
for sure.
Like at that stage, so I was just not eating all that much and like working out a lot, but not really targeting what I was doing, like working out wise.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just kind of like the compliments started coming in, and like girls started to get, not ones at school really, but like girls kind of started to get interested in you. Mm-hmm. Through like various circles and stuff, like social circles outside school. And then I kind of got a hold of it a bit, and then I really fell off the wagon. I think I was just starting to lack that consistency a bit, and I'd be up, you know, I'd be pushing really hard, and then I'd be like letting go a bit too much. And then throughout like,
this is with your training and with your diet and with your weight.
Yeah, and through RMIT, I wasn't really that, kind of like let myself go a bit again, and then so I worked at the desalination plant and as in oil and gas in Western Australia. And then it was kind of, I was smoking cigarettes. When I worked at Hungry Jack's, I don't mad shout outs to HJ's, but when I was working at HJ's in Frankston, you used to be able to get extra breaks if you're a cigarette smoker.
What?
So yeah, you get like,
I would have taken up smoking cigarettes for that.
Well, that's pretty much what I did. So, so like you got like,
how many of these do I have to smoke? Do I have to inhale?
Yeah. So you get like a 10-minute break every hour working at HJ's.
Out with a
cigar. like Rodney Dangerfield or something like that. So. And yeah, and then it kind of all I was filling in for a mate's indoor soccer team, and I'm like completely out of breath. And I kind of realised only a few years ago that I was asthmatic as well, which wasn't helping. And like I was so out of breath, I'm like, all right, I'm going to quit smoking. But I was so terrified of putting weight back on again after quitting smoking that I really just tried to knuckle down. I probably overdid it again. Working out in WA, so working fly in, fly out in camps, it's kind of, people really go like two ways. So, well, maybe three ways. Like people are very introverted and keep to themselves and maybe watch movies and stuff every night. And then you have the people that are really into partying and drinking and stuff every night. And then the people that are really trying to work, and often in an unhealthy way, on their health and fitness and stuff. So I just tried to kind of follow... yeah, I was on that path, and it kind of really didn't. I kind of thought it was manageable, and it's like you're rationing it in yourself. And then it came to a point, I think, when I was about 26, 27. No, when I was 26, and I was going out with a girl, and I was taking, regrettably taking like performance enhancing substances.
Were you?
Yeah, but not while I was cycling or anything like that. It was just because I wanted to look a certain way.
The Mexican subs.
Yeah. So, and she was.
So what type of stuff?
So just Psalms.
What's that? I don't really know.
So they're
performance enhancement.
So androgen modulators. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of it's not injected. You take it orally.
Yep.
And it gives you the ability to train twice a day. So you could. It will give you this crazy good recovery, but at the end of the day, it's like you got all the bad effects from taking proper gear, but not really the benefits. So it was kind of like a dead end road anyways. Yeah. And it was a really dumb thing to do. And it actually it destroyed my health for like the next pretty much 4 years afterwards.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I had really bad testosterone levels and stuff like that. And even to this day, I still got to get tested every year.
Really? So
From that.
did you not do... I know that when you cycle on... Like, I got one of my best mates who's been on a cycle of steroids. He's just a regular gym dude or whatever.
Yeah.
It's the first time, and he's off it now, and then he's doing the... Whatever it is to rebuild your testosterone.
Yeah, TRT, so therapy, yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe, I guess. Yeah, just to get yourself back to level, level playing, and then he might do another cycle or whatever. I'm not really sure. But did you not do that, or like why did it affect you so badly?
Well, I only took a couple of cycles, and I didn't think I needed the therapy afterwards, and I really didn't want to start shooting my stuff. And I'd seen in like documentaries and on the internet and stuff when people start taking testosterone therapy and stuff like that, that it can... that's even more of a dead end road. Like you can't come off it after that. So once you're on it, it's like you have to be on it for good. So
really,
and it did. I had an endocrinologist like go through me with a fine-tooth comb when I was really sick after coming off SARMs, and there's a lady that's as old as your nan. She grabs you on the nads. Which I didn't see coming, which was probably good that I didn't see coming because I probably would have been pretty nervous
Some
about it.
blokes pay big money for that.
She's like, I got the best job in the world.
I'm like, oh, the worst.
Yeah. And then she's like, look, you're right on the limit for therapy. She's like, I'll leave the call up to you. You can make the call. Mm-hmm. And she's like, and I'll back you. But she's like, you just got to know that once you're on it, then that's it. There's no coming off it.
Yeah.
So, a shot in the ass once a month.
For the rest of your life?
Yeah, well, I think if you come off it, you could end up sterile or you shrink your nads or
Really? Well, a lot of UFC fighters come off it because I remember the TRT exemption, sorry.
Oh, so they have an exemption to
They had in the UFC what they had was they had basically an exemption for TRT if you went and got it tested by a doctor and you needed your levels were low. So all the UFC fighters were going to their doctor and being like, hey, fucking can you just say that my levels are really low and I want to just... And then they would absolutely juice themselves to the gills with TRT. But then the UFC cleaned themselves up like 5 years ago. Yeah. And now no one's on TRT. And you can see the bodies are totally changed. You can see that it's night and day of how somebody looks particularly. Yeah. But I'm interested to see. I'm not quite sure how the rest of their life, the back end behind the scenes, is playing out. One thing that I have heard around that is the mental health. Even Deeks might have mentioned it to me about like coming off certain types of gear. Yeah. How you feel like Superman. Yeah. You feel unbreakable. You wake up, bounce out of bed, everything's great, all your numbers are going through the roof. You look the best you've ever looked.
Your like vascularity's crazy. Yeah.
And then you come off it and you're just like, oh fuck, I suck.
Yeah.
Because it would be hard.
And it affects you in so many ways. But yeah, and it's still something I think to this day, it's like, because I had that exemption. She's like, look, and it probably would have changed me athletically in other sports and stuff I do, in particularly on the bike. And I could have like legally stayed on it. I was like, we'll give it a couple of years. I'll try and manage it in other ways as best I can. So
interesting. So where did the eating disorder come in?
Well, So to come back to that, so my girlfriend found me with these items, and she's like, "You got to get this diagnosed, and at least once it's diagnosed, then you can start to try and work on a way of fixing it." Mm-hmm. So I just ended up getting a counsellor, and I think it was just more because like you think a certain way. And you rationalise it to yourself. It's like, well, if I can get this properly diagnosed, then at least I can make peace with it and just not think that I'm thinking a certain way. It's like, it is what it is, and then there's a way to fix it, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of self-management, I suppose.
Interesting.
So if I look back and like look at the weight and how it's zigzagged, it's probably really been twice where I've been really, really bad. So once in high school, and then probably while I was working away in WA, yeah.
So would you be not eating correctly or like throwing up? Or
it would go from...
Or just obsession with your weight?
It would be both.
Part of it?
Yeah, so it'd be not eating enough. Like the second time around, like the enamel on my teeth would start coming off all the time. Yeah. And I was like, what is going on? Because I could brush my teeth like a normal person, like twice a day. But and then looking at photos and seeing how thin I am, and like... and friends of mine that I thought were like very light people, like quite skinny, and then finding out that I'm actually lighter than them.
Yeah.
And then you're like, and then it would evolve from that into, oh, well, I need to fix this. So then you'd be at the gym all the time, like weighing your food.
So proper body dysmorphia, really.
Yeah,
like they talk about.
yeah.
So how big were you when you were big? How big are you now? What do you weigh now? As a healthy
I just don't weigh myself anymore, but I probably had a guess, probably between 84 and 87.
Yeah. Yeah, I reckon. And what were you?
Well, in high school, I was over 100.
Yep.
So probably, and a slightly shorter, and probably getting close up to about 110, I would think.
Yeah, really?
Like some really big. Yeah.
That's a big, especially for a young kid.
Yeah.
Carrying that type of weight, yeah.
And it's kind of like, you try not to blame your parents too much, but when you look back at all, you're like, gee, I really lived. Yeah. It was clear that there was problems with how I was eating and stuff. But like you can be a certain body type and whatever, and it can get you so far. But when you look at your habits and stuff, you're like, yeah, this is clearly what's like causing all this. It's not that I'm just unlucky in the genetics department, even though that genetics are not as good as some others and stuff. But it's
yeah, interesting. Isn't it?
Yeah, you can't live this lie too much and say, well, it's everything else's fault. It's not me. It's like, yeah, it is.
Yeah,
me.
yeah. It's funny. I don't know how many young kids go through that stuff, but
and it's getting worse. Yeah,
it will continue to get worse for sure with social media.
Yeah,
but I've always had a really fast metabolism.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, I don't know how I came to this realization, but in my head, the only way that you would have like a wife and a family and people would like a lady, a woman that would love you and whatever, was to be big and strong.
Yeah.
Like for my whole really young period growing up, I just thought like if you didn't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone, like no one was going to give a fuck about you. And I don't know how I came to that conclusion, but I always had a really fast metabolism, like super fast. So I was always super lean and found it really hard to put on weight. And, like you go to the gym and you're eating all these proteins and lots of meals, 6 meals and all that stuff. And I just never could put on weight. And that was fine, whatever. But I reckon for a period, and I didn't go through anything eating disorder wise or whatever. But one thing that I did do though, from about 17 years of age until probably about 23, when I was living at my mum and dad's. Oh, actually, I wasn't living at my mum and dad's this whole time, but I would weigh myself because I would go to the gym flat out, and I was trying to put on weight to get stronger, mainly for footy, but also like looks wise and that stuff I was talking about in the back of my mind. But I would weigh myself fucking more than 3 or 4 times a day. Yeah. Every time I'd go to the bathroom, then go to the toilet and go to the bathroom, wash my hands or like brush my teeth, whatever, I would jump on the scales. Yeah. And if I was 100 or 200 grams up, I'd be like, fuck yeah, that's it. Yeah. And if I was 100 or 200 grams down, I was like, oh man. And it would be like, all my work's gone down the drain. And that's amazing how I would be like, and especially through those 2 periods of time, I'd be in the exact opposite way. So I'd be hoping to get that, 300 or 400 grams less. Yeah. It's so funny. And I don't think, it never really screwed me over in any significant way, but it was certainly a small form of body dysmorphia, I reckon. Yeah, and it's quite interesting and at that time with intermittent fasting, it had just become a new thing, and tracking with mobile phones, it was a lot easier to track what you're eating, and people would try and get like a particular app which tracks your food and stuff. There was one that was quite famous, and then people would try and get like how many continuous days, and then I think I managed something like 700 or 800 continuous days. Of what though? Of like tracking your food, like, in general, like correctly, and it would tell you how many 800 days. In a row. Yeah, so I'd tell you how many days in a row, and then I don't even know if I've woken up 700 or 800 days in a row. Yeah, so essentially, like it got to the point of like 800 days would have been like in a 2 or 3 year period or whatever. Yeah. And then people still even do it to this day. And then when you look back at it, you're like, that is so, like, I can obviously work out in my head how much I need to eat intuitively over the periods of measuring that I know in my head. But it's like, no one is going to be impressed that you've
written down what you ate for 1,000 days straight. But
No, it's not a
and
healthy
it's not a healthy relationship to have. And it's same with like intermittent fasting. And I was right into intermittent fasting when I was FIFO. You know, people would be like by the clock, you know, like 18 and 16 and 8. And I would end up, I was trying to get so good at it and thinking that it made such a difference that I would get to the point of where I could do it just one meal a day.
Yep.
So I would eat like, I'd annoy everyone at work because I'd be sitting at my desk and I'd have like 12 eggs, like veggies over here, meat over here. And I like, they'd be trying to talk to me and have meetings and stuff. And I'd just be munching on, just have constant food hanging out the side of my mouth.
75-minute meal once a day.
Yeah. So like, and then when you look at, so I found that all those things were creating unhealthy relationships with food. Yeah.
For sure, they sound like it.
And it's like, even when you talk to people that are like into keto and IF and stuff, like, look, I'm certainly not above all that. Like, I'm vegan since I've been back from America and I've like done reasonably well out of it. And it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time, but I was kind of worried about the way that my testosterone and stuff would react. But I wanted to give it a proper shot, and that's kind of gone reasonably well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny. I was just thinking about it while we were talking about that thing, that weight thing. That I'm still kind of similar, like the way that I think of myself. Like I look in the mirror and think that I'm still skinny, but I weigh like 86, 87 kilos.
Yeah.
You know, like other people would probably be like, oh, he's a pretty, not big, but like certainly not skinny.
Yeah.
For my height, but I still go that way, you know.
It's kind of cool where we go to the gym as well. I think that's going to change anyways in the new premises, but there's like no mirrors. So you're not really fixated on how you look, you're fixated on what you're doing at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, do you know I've never trained, I've never had a membership at a gym with a mirror.
Yeah.
Because I trained my whole life from about 14 years of age from 14 to about 26, I trained at the Rye Football Club gym.
Oh yeah.
And I've never been a member of a regular gym, but I've trained 3 to 5 days a week since I was 14, pretty much.
Yeah.
Then I was at a CrossFit gym. I did CrossFit for a couple of years. Then I started weightlifting and then powerlifting.
Yeah.
And weightlifting now. It's the same, but they're just the same. They're just big warehouses with people throwing banter around, not really any headphones in. Like that's how I've always trained. So I actually walk into gyms now. I've always gone to like a drop-in at a gym, you know, like I've been to gyms, I've just never paid for a membership, you know, if I'm here or I'm visiting or I just want to get a day in and I'm whatever, you know, I've been there, but I walk into a regular gym now and I giggle to myself. I'm just like, fucking have a look at these crew. Like just staring at themselves in the mirror doing the bicep curls and everyone's got their headphones in. Yeah. And I'm kind of like, man, I want to just go up and go, hey guys, it'd be way funner if it wasn't like this. It's the worst environment at the regular Globo gym. Like, it's not a community, you know. Mirrors are not good for anyone, you know. People go, oh, you want to see your form? I think that's a big lie. But yeah, interesting. So, you watching the footy today anywhere?
No.
You're not?
No, I was going to go to the gym after this.
I thought you were going to go in the morning.
No, I was cleaning the house and stuff.
Ah, sweet. Not a big footy fan?
No. I'll watch Bathurst.
Not what I was asking about.
kind of retain some kind of masculinity. Watch cars burn around the track.
Yeah, sweet. So, well, before we wrap it up, Nico, so what's the, if you were to say, you know, with everything that you're doing in the endurance racing, like do you have any sort of goals or anything that you would like to achieve over the journey of this kind of path you're on?
I feel like, because I know that I won't ever be able to do it forever.
Yep.
But because I know circumstances will change, but it's kind of like striking while the iron's hot. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, well, I can manage 1 or 2 a year, so I'll keep doing it while everything kind of responds pretty well. So yeah, I think, but yeah, there's definitely no, I had crazy goals when I was younger that I would try and go to Japan and get, in Japan they have their track cyclists have a thing called Kirin, which old Japanese people bet on.
Yep.
And you have to go to this school in Mount Fuji for 11 months, and it's like you live as a monk for 11 months and then you become an employee of the state, kind of like a public servant, and then you race this. So I really wanted to do that for ages, but it was such a wild idea that it's like, there was like, first of all, I had to learn Japanese, which I can't even speak English that well, and like to get a...
so there's a 5-year hurdle.
Yeah, it was like
just to get your foot in the door.
Yeah, it's this crazy long-term, like it would have had taken like 7 years to be able to do. And it was like, I couldn't get a visa, so I would have had to have married a Japanese person, or like taken bought a Japanese company or started. So it was like, yeah. So like the logistics behind it was so mental.
Would have had to become the Prime Minister of Japan.
Yeah. But it was like, I spent 6 months of planning, and I was like, I'm going to do this because I had enough money. I was like, I've got enough money for the next 10, 15 years that I could back myself to do this. And it's like, it's such a hard, it would have been pretty much saying goodbye to everyone in my life for like the next 10 years to be able to do like just this one thing. But I was quite determined to do it. But yeah, I think that was a goal that was slightly still possible, but like the logistics behind it would have been, it's easier riding across a country than it is to learn Japanese, become a Japanese citizen, study in Japan, then make the requirements to get to this monk school in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, no, it sounds like the juice might not be worth the
squeeze. Yeah,
that one. Interesting. Okay, cool. So, anything you want to plug, Nico? Any social media as well? Like, where can people find you? Find more about, even if it's just the sport in general, yourself. Anything you want to plug?
Probably. Well, all my stuff's on Instagram under that_scary_Jew is my Curve Cycling is really good. So they're kind of the universe which I do a lot of my stuff in. So if you have an interest in long distance cycling, like their bike brand is based around the corner from here.
And what was the name of it again?
It's called Curve. So Curve Cycling. Right. Yeah. So they do. So yeah, if you're interested in like. Yeah, they run a lot of races at their expense off their own back, or do a lot of bike touring. But yeah, it's just kind of swinging the leg over and all right, well, let's just plan something out and see how that feels, and yeah, kind of go from there.
Cool. All right, well, that's about it, mate. I think.
Yeah,
Thanks
cool,
for
man.
coming in.
No, pleasure.
That's a wrap.
Thank you. Cheers.